Okay, so let's pick up where we left off here with using and. If you're unsure which pronoun to use, cross out the word and any other attached nouns to decide which pronoun to use. So, in other words, let's say we had the sentence, my dad drove my sister and blank. If we cross out my sister and, you would know instinctually to say my dad drove me, right? You would never say my dad drove I. So you can kind of cross out any words that are making it confusing and you'll kind of instantly know what to say. You can also think through the fact that the pronoun is receiving the action of being driven, so I would need the object pronoun me. Similarly, Jose and blank will go to the store. If I just cross out Jose and, I know, of course, to say he will go to the store and use the subject pronoun he because he's doing the action. But it's just kind of an easy tip if you have a compound situation to just cross out the other word and the and to help you figure out which to use pretty easily. Another case is who and whom. So let's just kind of think through the fact who is a subject pronoun? Think of it like he, she, or they, whereas whom is the object pronoun like him, her, or their. But the same rule applies. If the pronoun is doing the action, use who. If it's receiving the action, use whom. So if I were to say, who or whom are you trying to call? Well, I know the person I'm calling is receiving my action, so I would say whom. Another little trick is you could swap out him or he and kind of figure out, are you trying to call him or are you trying to call he? Oh, of course I would say I'm trying to call him. So if that's the case, I'm going to go with whom because they're both object pronouns. So who or whom solved the mystery? Well, I need the subject pronoun who because who is doing the action. But if we use our little trick, we could also say, oh, he solved it. You wouldn't say him solved it, you'd say he. So if I kind of answer the question, I know to use the subject pronoun he, and similarly, I would use the subject pronoun who. All right, that is the end of all of our funky pronoun rules. So let's see if we can kind of put them all into practice. Pause the screencast, do your best to correct any pronoun antecedent errors in the list below, and then play the podcast, the screencast to see how you did. Just to note that some sentences might be correct. All right. So the first one, everyone went home to get their raincoats. Now, this is a tricky situation because everyone is a singular indefinite pronoun. However, remember our new rule that we want to be gender inclusive, and we don't know if everyone included is a female or male identifying. So even though historically we might have said his or her raincoats, here we just say their raincoats to be inclusive. Each car pedal handles differently depending on how it is pressed. Each is a singular pronoun, and pedal handles is not a person, it's an object, so I know that I can just default to the singular pronoun it. Either of the teams can win if they are successful. So either of the teams separates teams out. So either this team or that team can win if it is successful. That's a little funky sounding when you read it out loud, but kind of think of the fact that either separates teams into two separate entities. So it would be it is successful. Some of the players have forgotten their bag. So it looks like there's only one bag that we're referring to. And some of the players, remember, some can go kind of back and forth depending on what it's modifying. Here it's modifying players, which is plural. So even though there's just one bag, players uses their. Nobody at the concert is willing to give up his or her seat. So remember, if we're referring, let's see, nobody is a singular indefinite pronoun. And you know what, that one you could use there because that would be like kind of gender inclusive thing. So even though nobody is a singular indefinite pronoun, I would probably default to using there. So that's probably one we need to update with the new rule. So if you had said his or her, it's technically grammatically correct, but we might want to default to their seats to be gender inclusive. The team won its first game. Team is a collective noun, and there's a single game, so we can use its. The orchestra warmed up their instruments. Collective noun orchestra, but we're referring to multiple parts of the collective noun, so we use their. Neither Jenna nor Jess dropped her dog off. Now we are assuming that Jess identifies as female, so we can use the female pronoun her. Remember, nor separates, and we default to the one closest to the pronoun, which is Jess there. Neither the Johnsons, sorry for the typo, Nor their neighbor took out his garbage can. Remember, nor separates. Neighbor is closest to the pronoun, so we would agree with neighbor. Again, we could only use his if we knew that the neighbor was male identifying. All of the diamonds have lost their glow. So all can go either way. In this case, diamonds is countable, right? There's multiple diamonds and they're countable, so we would use the plural pronoun there. Most of the sand fell out of its bag. In this case, most is modifying sand, and remember, sand is not countable. There's not like a grain of sand. It's just sand is a general entity, and that's when we go back to the singular. So most of the sand fell out of its bag. He completed his task faster than I. Remember, if we added the verb do, we would know instinctually to use I. So just because we dropped the do, we still use the subject. Subjects are always compared to subjects. Who brought the potato salad? Who is the subject pronoun? It's doing the action of the sentence, so we need the subject. Another trick is to answer it. Oh, he did, or she did, or they did. So I'm using the subject to answer it. I should use the subject to ask it. My coach gave my teammates and I should become me extra laps. We need the object pronoun me because I'm receiving the action of being given laps. And I can also use my trick of crossing out my teammates and I would know to say my coach gave me extra laps, right? I would never say I. So that calls for the object pronoun. All right, so pronoun antecedent is tricky. Hopefully some of these rules are starting to make sense and we can keep reviewing from here. Thanks so much.